The server room lights were that cold clinical white kind that made tiles like comforting fear. The racks ran 3 rows, each about 8 feet tall, packed with blinking green and blue LEDs. The city carried a constant hum, the low-frequency vibration of hundreds of the lights. Rachel Kim sat at a mobile gray hoodie, sleeves rolled just enough to show a thin silver chain around her wrist. Her dark brown hair was pulled back in a low ponytail, a few loose strands foxed on the screen. 6 panels running different from lined with commander windows and data families attorneys did trust. Her fingers moved across the keyboard, steady rhythm following every edge code from scratch. The city funcated lines being cover felt clean enough and building it the way she thought it should be. She typed the last line. Her fingers didn't lift from the keys right away. She looked at the few lines she'd just written, a redundant module she decided not to tell anyone about. It had no function in the system, wouldn't affect any trade, wouldn't appear in any log. It created a tiny, almost invisible something she wasn't sure was Henry right but had decided to do anyway. Then she hit save and closed the editor.
A man stood beside her, Elon Harper, in a dark blue shirt with his sleeves rolled up too. But his role was performative. The I'm working hard look, different from her practical He stood with his arms crossed, watching the code scroll, wearing an expression he'd practiced many times, somewhere between appreciation and control.
When can we deploy?
10th stress test. If it passes, deploy tomorrow.
Investors want a demo. Wednesday.
Wednesday works.
She hit enter. A line appeared on the screen. Build successful. Test passed. 10-10.
Done.
Did you give it a name?
Systems don't need names. They need to run.
Fine. Let it run.
Rachel sat alone in the center of the server room, the 6 panels still running their monitoring processes. She reached out and turned off 5 of them, leaving only the one showing those few lines of code. She looked at those lines, that redundant module with no name, no comment, floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Sansa's lie the labrin but gray-blue salient F done. 6 people sat 3 VKs board here Elon Kurndakism. She sat at the far end, a laptop in front of showing the system's live monitoring dashboard. Elon stood at the front, Relon Kurd front, colors curves, contours, animation times, reference perfect.
What we've built is unprecedented in this industry. Real-time trade matching latency is on 5 millisects. Security, stability, scalability, all in one system.
Latency under 5 millisects. How did you achieve that?
The core matching algorithm uses asymmetric hash indexing. The conventional approach puts all orders in a global table and scans them sequentially. I used sharding with parallel preface from ON2 to ON law. Meanwhile, state between shared doesn't go through the main server. It uses local consistency snapshots from edge nodes directly, so cross-shared match confirmation happens within 5 minutes. All of it.
Rachel is our chief architect. She built the entire system's core algorithms. We're lucky to have her.
The office lights were on, but most people had gone home. Only the conference room at the end of the hall was still lit. Ray sat at her desk as the laptop in front of her, a thing a document for and she reading fighter. The end default allow to exhibit the pliz. At the top of the down the page or Rachel could have stopped on a line. The curve at the edges wasn't quite right. The angle of the final was gradient.
Fingers froze over the keyboard. She didn't close the document. She stood up and walked towards the lit conference room at the end of the hall. She didn't knock. She pushed the door open. Elon sat at the head of the table. Elon glass of whiskey and a laptop in front of him. He was on video call with someone Rachel didn't recognize. Not surprised, the calm of someone confirming that something he'd expected had finally arrived.
Shodan, you saw.
That signature is forged.
Rachel, I need to go public. The investors said your equity structure looked unclear to them. They want a more traditional founder allocation. You're the technical core. Technical cores don't need equity structures to reflect their contribution. You take cash. I'll give you a substantial cash settlement.
The parking lot was empty, streetlights casting warm yellow pools across the concrete. Rachel sat in her car. She sat in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel, eyes on the lit office entrance ahead. She sat there for a long time. She picked up her phone, opened her contacts, and scrolled to a name, Walter King, father. Her finger paused over the call button. She didn't press it. She put the phone back on the passenger seat. She leaned back, her gaze through the wind settling on the dark letters above the office entrance, Vault. She sat there for a long time. Then she started the engine and pulled slowly out of the lot. The convenience store's white light was harsher than anywhere else. The aisles were empty, a middle-aged man behind the counter scrolling through his phone. Rachel stood in front of the drink cooler, looking at the rows of bottled water and energy drinks, not reaching for any of them. Her phone buzzed, a message from a contact she'd saved as Amina West. Rachel looked at the message, then locked the screen and put the phone back in her pocket. Rachel pulled a folded 20 from her pocket and laid it on the counter.
$2.50.
As the cashier made change, she stood there looking at the door. It was quiet. A car passed, headlights sweeping across the glass in a band of light, then gone. She picked up her change and the water and walked out of the store. When the doors opened, a woman with a dog glanced at her and looked away. Rachel stepped in and stood in the corner on her wrist. Its edges had a slight worn feel. When she'd walked out shouting. The afternoon sun hit her face direct. Winsly, then walked the gray sedan and got behind the wheel. She started the engine, no radio, no GPS. She pulled out onto the street.
The shop was small, about 100 square feet, tucked into the corner of an old commercial street. The window displayed a few old laptops waiting for repair and a vintage desktop, beside a handwritten sign. On the workbench inside sat a partially disassembled MacBook, screws neatly arranged on a small magnetic mat.
This laptop got dropped, won't boot. The photos inside my daughter's photos, can you recover them?
Hard drive's fine. Just needs a new screen and casing. Photos are safe.
How long?
2 days. Pick it up tomorrow evening. Above the shop was a tiny attic space about 80 square feet with a single bed, a desk, and a lamp. The window faced a narrow alley, a view of the brick wall of the building across. Rachel sat at the desk, a laptop in front of her. Not her old one, more generic machine with no markings. Her browser page she shouldn't be accessing. Vault's internal server management interface. Her fingers moved across the keyboard typing a command. A line appeared on Zai's screen. She was in. Her eyes moved through the directory structure, one she designed. Every folder, every permit level, every log path. She could name their locations with her eyes identified. She found one of them, opened it, and there on the screen were the lines of code she'd written in the server room 5 years ago.
You're still there.
The shop was empty except for Rachel. A repaired laptop sat on the workbench, screen on, showing a restore complete prompt. Her phone buzzed on the counter, a notification from the equity structure. Your name was removed from their EQLR in the Amina West. I typed to your old plug using that as a BIC address. Rachel didn't reply hi. She opened her laptop's browser and logged into the email account she hadn't used in almost a year. In the inbox was a new email from Amina, an attached PDF, the draft piece. She opened the PDF. It laid out Vault's funding rounds over the past 2 years, equity changes, and some details she hadn't known. Elon had brought in new investors before the IPO, allocating additional options under the name management restructuring. No explanation for why. She finished reading the draft, then she closed the email without downloading the file.
Vault's open office was brightly lit, but mostly empty. Only one wakestation was still on. Ben Okafi sat there, the system's code repository file tree on his screen. He'd been on the job 9 months, already one of the few engineers willing to dig into the core modules.
He was scrolling through code comments line by line. His mouse wheel kept moving one stopping want and type resi. He stared at those 3 letters RK for a moment. He opened a search panel and typed K. The system returned 1, I'll screw it Artsime word magistraces. He looked at those 7 results and read the full comment. He opened another and read that one too. Then he closed the search panel.
He picked up his phone and went to a contact page, no saved info, just a blank contact detail, and typed a line in the input box without sending. Are you still writing code? He looked at those words for a few seconds, then deleted them. He put the phone back on the desk without hitting send and went back to scrolling through the code. Rachel was installing an OS on a computer when the wind chime jingled. A young man walked in, about 28, in a black hoodie and round frame glasses. He wasn't carrying any device for repair. He stood at the counter, scanned the shop, then his eyes settled on Rachel.
Are you Rachel Kim?
Who are you?
The young man pulled a badge from his pocket and set it on the counter. It had his photo and a line of text, Vault, Senior Software Engineer Ben Okafar.
I've been at Vault for 9 months. I've been reading the system's core code. I saw something.
What did you see?
I found your RK signature in the matching algorithm. No current staff has it. There's hidden undocumented permissions and a secret entry point in the code.
Why did you look into this?
Because the code you standard is cleaner than anything anyone on the company team's writing. It took a month to fully understand the optimization logic in that algorithm, and then I noticed it had been modified, made slower, but the comments didn't say why. I don't know if you left it there, but I think you should know it's still there.
Send it to my email. I'll look.
That redundant module, I haven't told anyone.
The desk lamp was on, the laptop screen casting a cold white glow in the dim space. Rachel sat at the desk, Ben Okafu's files on her screen, a current status report of Vault system, complete with permit structures, her eyes through the server repository, and the current state of a node she'd labeled to hidden directories, her fingers sliding slowly across the track tab. She found the redundant module's entry point. It was still there, identical to the code she'd written 5 years ago, unchanged, undeleted, unlogged. Her fingers paused over the keyboard. Then she typed another command, pulling up the node's sex. It recorded every query of that node's permits over the past 5 years. No one had checked its status. Not once.
Nobody touched you.
Rachel's inbox had a new email, not from Amina, not from Ben. The sender was her father's address, the message short. She read the email and didn't reply right away. She leaned back, her eyes resting on those few short lines on the screen. She closed the inbox without replying, but she didn't delete it either.
Vault's growth is built on our technology. Our trade matching algorithm is the fastest in the market, hands down.
Some have noted that your chief architect left before the IPO. How has that affected Vault's technology roadmap?
Rachel Kim is a fine engineer. She made important contributions to our early development. But Vault's technology is a team effort. One person's departure does affect the operation of a systematic project.
You're here. I searched for your name. The only public record I could find was the business license filing for this shop, because Vault piece I wrote got to my editor, because the Elon's lawyers wouldn't publish it. Why? They said the equity structure irregularities I cited lacked independent verification, so the piece got shelved. I need more evidence. I need someone to tell me whether those equity changes were legitimate or not.
Why are you doing this piece?
Because we went to college together. You wrote 3 papers on distributed systems design. Every one of them got Toshop marks counter fixing people's cracked screens. The code you can change the entire industry structure, not watch it get taken by someone else, used to raise money and called a team effort. The date I was removed, it's right here. It leads directly to him. You signed with an admin account. The only reason you'd do that is if nobody else could prove the document was legitimate.
Accessing root. Read only. No trace. Alert. Unauthorized root directory read request. Source IPP, internal gateway, tag, low priority.
Requests from the internal gateway are usually just scheduled tasks from some orchestration module.
The engineer moves the mouse casually and clicks the ignore button on the screen. As the monitor fell back into silence, within computer terminal clearly displays the access records. With an impassive face and steady, even breathing, Rachel showed no superly sky move them or remain calm and focused throughout the process. 3 more days passed. In the dim attic lit only by the cold glow of the computer, Rachel reopened his laptop, and the screen lit up to reveal a command interface with a pure black background, the white markers blinking steadily after the prompt. Operate completed. Status pending. Rachel stared quietly. The prompt confirmed that everything was correct, conformed the operation of saving them the modification history, then closed the turfin and strandrays, and the computer at first said looking calm and need to see what would happen next.
The Grand Exchange Hall is brightly lit, as the listing bell rings out loud and clear, slowly due down from the high ceiling, swirling and dancing gracefully in the air before settling on the polished floor and among the crowd. The scene is brimming with a solemn and vibrant listing atmosphere. Drake chins for the solemn, vibrant listing atmosphere.
Today is just the beginning. Vault is going to change the underlying rules of financial trading. We have a world-class team, a world-class product, and a world-class vision.
No one knew far away the upheaval he was about to his glorious exact moment. Then the magnificent had reached the pinnacle his Herleish and his Karemia. Most of the work area had fallen into darkness late at night, with only a few scattered debrevents on Intikment still on. The interface displays the component codes related the Sitons Husin Pipe Senfa, with line numbers and Sat My lining clearly rifed. Node 04 said, heart lost. Ben Okafa stared at the alert message for several seconds, his expression shifting from confusion to solemnity. The report button on the interface was clearly visible, yet he never clicked it. His expression was tight, as he rapidly weighed his options and made a decision in his mind.
That node. Someone accessed it.
Morning, interior, San Francisco Vault headquarters the day of the incident. An alert pop-up window that appears on the panel. Trade matching latency jumped from the baseline 5 minutes to 47, then to 120 within a minute and kept climbing. A suspected unknown and abnormal version was being executed. 9:03 a.m. The second alert appeared. User account balances showed discrepancies, not out losses but mitch temporary freezes. Error prompts started appearing on user envoys consuming most of the 7 p.m. Some sport nodes started requests to the main server exceeding what the servers could process. The entire system's response on time started lagging.
9:33 a.m., Elon appeared in the office. His tie was on, but his shirt's top messier unusual.
Can someone tell me what's happening right now?
Node 5 refers clients sent to the main server in the past 8 minutes, each one accessing the user database. He looked at those logs, his fingers on the keyboard, unmoving. The conference room lights were turned up full. Vault board members, legal advisors, and Elon Harper sat around the long at the head, a laptop and a phone on speaker hybrid for him.
Funds responses and completely chaotic. Elon, when can your tech team get it back online?
Engineering's investigating. The core matching ALD is showing anomalies, not the version we deployed. There's an undoctored program running in the system.
An undocumented program? What do you mean?
The room was quiet for a moment. Then, the conference room display switched to a new screen, a command line interface. No user info. The command line interface on the display was showing the input line by line. Broadcast. A new section of text appeared in the command line window. Not code, just plain text, like someone typing in real time and hitting enter to send.
The text stayed on screen for about 10 seconds, then the window closed, and display returned to the conference room's default desktop.
Who triggered that backdoor?
Benovas.
Who gave her system the side access?
He sat on the edge of his chair, his eyes on the screen, but his hands were under the desk, quietly folded together. He didn't answer Iman's question.
Every user of Vault system received an automatically generated email, detailing Vault's equity changes from its founding to the present, including record. Every funding round's investor hit list as Aobichan's 51%.
Screenshots started appearing on social media. People were discussing the document's contents, asking who is Rachel Kim, sharing pages from that PDF, debating what had really happened inside the company's structure. The discussion spread and unfolded online, every share and comment extending its reach and visibility.
Within 2 hours of the incident, the Vault system crash dominated all trending lists.
A mysterious programmer remotely restored the system and released a public statement on the ownership of a 51% individual equity stake.
In tech media comment sections, engineers were analyzing the implementation logic of the unlock code, constructing Ram's chop system state, and users were searching of Rachel's cut's name, Tito Talapt her then inscribed of a broad trace in the Serida paragraph. I did complete the equity confirmation, and paused briefly as she read it.
Elon sat behind his desk, tie loose and collar open. Laptop screen showing a video with a lawyer in gold-rimmed glasses.
If the clating the restored just signing partners 5 been kept.
That equity signed, she signed it voluntary back then.
If that record is upheld, the current equity structure may need to be restructured.
Elon's fingers stopped on the desk.
That authorization, she wrote it in when the system launched. I never read that part of the code.
We recommend filing for a temporary restraining order to suspend the document's enforcement. Additionally, whether that authorization
After
can be
the
signed
the speeds before him. Afternoon sunlight forming a harsh reflected band across the glass exterior. His eyes didn't flinch from the glare.
The shop door was closed, the wind chimed silent. Rachel sat behind the workbench, a laptop running system diagnose in front of her. Not Vault system, just another regular customer machine. Her phone screen lit up with a message from Amina. Rachel looked at the message, then put the phone back on the counter. She kept watching the diagnostic screen, the progress bar moving from 87% to 100% at a steady pace. She turned off the screen, set the computer aside, stood up, walked to the door, turned the lock one click, and went back behind the workbench to sit down.
A statement appeared on Ben's social media account, his photo and name clearly displayed on the post. His words were sent to the public via
video/audio.
He announced his resignation from Vault, confirming that he'd found the founding partners' comments in the system code, and that he believed the ownership declaration recorded in the system restoration was a legitimate extension of the system's design and should be recognized. At the end of the statement he mentioned specific detail. Only thing he'd done with that code was confirm it was indeed part of the original design. He hadn't changed it. He hadn't reported it. After posting the statement, he shut down his computer, picked up his keys from the desk, stood up from his workstation, and walked out of the office without looking back.
The courtroom was modest, dark wood paneling and white ceiling lights in a standard federal layout. Rachel didn't appear in person. She appeared via video link on the judge's screen, background a white wall with no markings, just a laptop camera capturing her face. She wore a dark gray long-sleeve top. Her face wasn't brightly lit on the video feed.
This court is hearing the temporary restraining order request. Vault seeks to suspend enforcement of the equity document on the grounds that the authorization record does not constitute a legally valid equisystem confirmation document. Respondent Rachel Kim, do you acknowledge that this record was written through a system backdoor?
That record was created by the system's original author when the system launched. Complete equity deprivation at that time, because the IPO wasn't complete, would have an immutable Amina trace in founders inside the system. The backdoor, it wasn't the only way I wrote that record. It was just how that was accessed. The record itself was created actively by me.
Can you prove that record was created at launch?
Yes, the system version log hatches can be verified by a third-party auditor. They match the core snapshot from the system busted parent and this assistant records from March 15, 2020. If needed, I can provide our records, not internal system records, but externally verifiable blockchain stub records.
The courtroom was quiet for a moment. The judge's pen paused on the paper. Then she looked at Rachel's video feed, glanced at the document on her desk. This court postponing busing me party verification records. Temporary restraining order request is denied for now, until independent verification of the system logs is complete.
The office lights were on. Elon sat behind his desk. Across from him sat two people, a lawyer he trusted, and the company's lead engineer, a middle-aged man with solid technical chops who never minced words on system architecture.
If we can modify the server logs before the independent audit, make it look like that authorization record was added after she was cut out, we might still have legal ground.
Elon was quiet for a moment.
Can we do it?
The engineer hesitated. His gaze moved between Elon and the lawyer once.
Technically, yes, local logs can be altered, but the system version log hatches would expose the temporal inconsistency.
Hashes form a cryptographic chain linking all log entries in chronological order. Any modification to a past entry would break the hashes for every subsequent entry. Any experienced auditor would catch it. When Rachel designed this system, the hash chain was built to anti-trimp standards.
Then don't change it. Submit that record as evidence to the independent auditor. Let the auditors decide for themselves.
The lawyer nodded and closed the folder. The engineer stood as well. As they walked to the door, Elon stayed seated behind his desk, not getting up to see them out. After the door closed, he turned to look out the window skyline, a silhouette of deep blue and warm orange, the highest building indicator lights blinking slowly in the night sky. His gaze didn't focus on any of them. The news of the court ruling had hit the platforms. As Elon walked out of the building, reporters had already gathered at the bottom of the steps, microphones and recorders forming a black array before him. His tie was tied, shirt buttoned to the top, his face carrying that practiced calm reserved for public appearances.
Elon, the court didn't grant the TOR. Do you now acknowledge Rachel Kim's equity claim?
The court's ruling calls for independent technical verification, not acceptance of a unilateral system statement. We welcome the independent verification process. We believe it will reveal the true origin of that record.
He didn't answer the question about acknowledging the equity claim. He didn't wait for more questions. He walked down the steps and got into the back seat of a dark sedan waiting at the curb. After the door closed, he leaned back in the seat, watching through the window as the reporters stayed on the steps, saying nothing.
Day, Interior, San Francisco, independent audit firm, 2 weeks later. A cold white office, a row of computer screens displaying hash verification results. 2 independent auditors sat before them, their conclusions sent simultaneously to the court and all parties. The key section of the verification report read, in the system 1520 tampspat, a record marked continuous and original author to does indeed exist. Its hash shows creation time started falls within a system haunt. No deletion or modification operations were recorded against this record.
The record's authenticity was verified by third-party validation. The report concluded definitively. This record was actively created during system deployment, not edited afterward. The report was sent simultaneously to the court clerk and to Rachel Kim's counsel.
The overhead office lights stay dark. Only a single desk lamp casts faint glow across the room. Elon sits behind his desk, an open laptop positioned directly in front of him. The screen pulls up a system log archive he pulls from the system's earliest backup servers, controls through each entry, one by one, his finger gliding slowly over the trackpad as his eyes trace every line of the logs. He navigates to logs from the system's launch week. One log line stands out, labeled System Account Initialization. He clicks open its full details. The account bears the username RK, with a permission tier marked Original System Developer. Its creation timestamp lands in the very first minute the system went live. He does not open the full contents stored within the entry. His finger freezes mid-trackpad. He slams the laptop shut, a sharp, hollow click echoing like a locked box snapping closed. He remains moteless in his chair, the thin beam from the desk lamp slicing a narrow stripe of light across his profile.
Today, the final verdict will be read out. The judge sits upright on the elevated trial bench with a document placed on the table. After reviewing the documents, she was ready to announce the final verdict. The court has received the independent audit verification report. It confirms the internal system account across was created as part of the core setup at the time of system deployment. Its hash value matches foundational build predating launch, and its creation time satisfies all legal criterias for evidential validity. The court hereby rules that Rachel Kim's status as a founding partner and her corresponding equity claim shall be legally recognized and upheld. A brief, hushed pause falls over the courtroom as court staff log the ruling.
Elman defense counsel shifts slightly in his seat and flips through the stack of documents laid out in front of him. Elman himself is absent from the courtroom entirely. The independent verification report is clear, and the court has made its final ruling. Elon, the motion we discussed earlier, we need you to confirm whether you'll execute the board's decision.
If this is the board's decision, I'll execute it. I resign as CEO, effective immediately. The equity structure will be adjusted according to the court ruling.
Derek Chen nodded. The meeting didn't last much longer.
Amina's article went live the day after the ruling. The headline, Vault's Return, the Founded Partners' Invisible Code and 51% Equity. The piece detailed the full timeline, the incident, the system restoration, the key turning points in the court ruling. At the end, she quoted the text Rachel had left in the system broadcast. I just came back to retrieve my algorithm. Comment sequence focused on a few threads, the legality of a founder returning this way, the ethics of system backdoors, and what would happen to Vault's current leadership. Rachel's name appeared in the opening paragraph and the final sentence. The wind chime jingled, the door opened at a normal angle, nothing unusual. A young woman in a green sweater walked in, not here for a repair. She stood at the counter, her eyes scanning the shop. She holds a brown envelope, setting the envelope down. She stopped at the counter and looked up at Rachel.
Rachel stood behind the workbench holding a screwdriver. She looked at the young woman. The young woman spoke, hers low, like someone delivering something she was ready to hand over it would be received.
Elon Harper asked me to give this to you. He doesn't have anything else to give, but this is something that should be kept by you. He wasn't sure if you'd take it.
Rachel's eyes rested on the envelope for about 3 seconds. She didn't touch it.
When did he ask you to bring it?
This morning. He asked me to deliver it in the afternoon.
He said you might open it, and you might not. He told me to tell you, there's nothing else.
Rachel reached out and took the envelope. Its surface was smooth, no markings, no signs of having been opened. She placed it on a shelf in a section beside the workbench. The young woman nodded, turned, and walked out. The wind chime rang once more, then fell silent. Rachel stood there, her eyes weighted in her fingers, but in the end, she didn't open it, she just put it back.
Rachel, it's evening on your side, isn't it?
Dad, you said the room upstairs was still empty. I think I might come home for a while, before I start over.
The sheets upstairs are already changed. When will you arrive?
In a few days. I'll call when I get there.
Good.
Early in the morning, as the sky over San Francisco was just beginning to brighten, a thin mist that wrapped the untidy. Elon dressed be could stood por de two case, and a dark steadily out of the skaze in the door behind his. Elon brief moment hesitations, betrays out a complex mix of reluctance and distressed emotion. Elon's lips moved slightly, as if he was about to speak but ultimately said nothing. Elon shifted his gaze away, walked towards that opened the rear door, bent down and slid neatly and smooth and indecisive. The car window slid upward gradually blocked Elon's profile. His face faded into the interior of the vehicle little by little, cutting off the outside world.
It is daytime in the office of a small tech company in San Francisco. The space is brightly lit and airy, smaller than before yet neat and orderly with a clutter-free desk surface. Ben Okafu sits upright at his workstation, fully focused and attentive. The open plan station in front of him is fully equipped, exuding an overall aura of professionalism and efficiency, and on the right is the composite record page of the code registry.
Ben stared intently at the screen, expression focused and meticulous. Chingji zoom in the pimo. It's ligis of pain this F1 readed me jishu trudi side and renwul. Helding Todd earthfield sounds overs. The desk lamp was on. Rachel sat at the desk, a notebook open before her, new, the cardboard cover still unworn. The first page was blank except for one line, new thoughts on system design. She held an old pencil from the repair shop workbench and was writing in the notebook, not code, but framework concepts in plain language. A system shouldn't have only one entrance. It shouldn't have only one exit either. She drew a line beneath it and kept writing. My second piece published today. No editor blocked it this time. It's called The Backdoor. Have you seen it? Rachel looked at the message, her fingers pausing over the screen for a moment. Then she typed a line. I saw it. She sent it and put the phone back on the desk. That envelope, the one the young woman had brought from Elon, still sat on the shelf, unopened, unmoved. It sat on the same shelf edge. Rachel's eyes rested on the notebook for a moment, then she turned to the next page. At the top of that page she wrote a new line. My father said it when I was small. He opened up an old radio to show me what was inside. I believe it again now. She set down the pencil and leaned back. The alley outside was quiet in the night, the street lamp's warm yellow puddle patch and that lined between light and light held Gelfag. That Lolita the words a notebook, to the old pencil, at the aldreflope in the street lamp to line between light and dark, quietly, steadily existing. The room was small, sloped ceiling, a north-facing window looking out at the old oak tree in the backyard. The sheets were pale blue, corners folded neatly. On the third shelf a few old books, her mother's, their spirals faded to a light brown, pages yellowed at the edges. Rachel set her suitcase in the corner without unpacking it. She stood by the window watching the oak in the yard, its leaves a layered deep green in the afternoon light, the wind moving through the canopy in a steady rustle. Her father's voice came from downstairs. Walter Kim was in the kitchen, cold white light spilling through door.
Rachel, come down for a minute.
She walked down the wooden stairs, each step letting out a faint creak under her weight. Walter stood in the middle of the kitchen, holding a screwdriver and an old radio, beige casing, worn knobs, the power cord wrapped twice in electrical flatted on tape. Rachel walked over, picked up the radio, flipped it over to check the model label, plugged it in, and turned the volume knob. Static hissed from the speaker, then a fragment of music, then static again. "Don't toss it, I can fix it." She recalled what her father had said when he opened another radio. "They don't stay broken forever, they just need to be loose wire." Reassembled the casing and turned it on. The radio produced a clear station, volume steady, no static.
Keep it. Put it in your room. Next time you're here, you can keep listening.
She went back to the attic, sat on the edge of the bed, and placed the radio on the desk, plugging it in. The dial was set to a music station, a melody she didn't recognize, filling the quiet space of the attic.
The afternoon sun wasn't harsh. 60s-era single-family homes lined the street, front lawns neatly trimmed. Rachel and Walter walked at an easy pace. He wore an old dark gray jacket, the cuffs slightly was worn Kentucky. His eyes landing briefly on a blue pickup parked at the curb, 1998 plates, then moving on.
How long are you planning to stay?
Not sure. Haven't figured it out yet.
Your mother used to say, you don't always have to figure things out before you start. Sometimes you figure them out as you go.
What else did she say?
Walter stopped, looking up at the canopy of a tree at the corner.
She also said, a lot of things can be restarted as long as you're willing to admit the last version wasn't quite right.
She caught up, not responding. They walked 3 blocks, then turned around at an intersection.
If you ever want to talk code, the kind of system you wrote or the one you're thinking about, you can. You don't have to handle everything alone. You can say it out loud first, then decide if you want anyone else in.
I will.
She walked inside without lingering at the door. The desk lamp was on. Rachel opened the new notebook to the page she'd written earlier. New thoughts on system design.
She read it, then flipped back a few pages. A pencil sketch, with different node names and connection paths between them.
She suddenly realized she hadn't drawn just one sketch but the same diagram over. She positioned the sketch under the brightest part of the lamp. Her fingers tracing the paths. She closed the note being at certain connection points. She closed the bed for a while and added a new line at off the lamp. The garage was small. Tool racks and shelving along the walls. Rachel opened a cardboard box, old books, yellowed documents, small parts wrapped in plastic bags. Inside were old NSN and a certificate from a math competition in high school. She remembered the competition but didn't recall keeping the certificate. She turned it over. On the back was a line in pencil, her mother's handwriting. She never gives up on a problem even when she already knows the answer. Rachel's fingers paused on the line. Then she placed the certificate back in the folder and put the folder on the shelf between the books, not back in the box. That afternoon, she opened another box, full of her college notebooks and drafts. She flipped through one and stopped at page 23. The core problem of distribute systems is a distributed of trust. Not all nodes are trustworthy. You can only trust for in 10 years structure of their connections. She looked at that line, then closed the notebook.
Day, interior, father's house. A dark blue sedan pulls up steadily at the gate of a house, with a faint light code scratch on its side panel. Amina pushed open the car door and got off, carrying a laptop bag in her hand with a capable and composed bearing. When Rachel opened the door, Amina was on the porch.
This place is quieter than I expected.
It's always been quiet. They sat in the living room. Walter brought out 2 cups of tea and set them on the coffee table. He exchanged a nod with Amina and went back to the kitchen. The living room was down to just the 2 of them. After the piece ran, I got some feedback. People left comments saying they started reevaluating their own company's equity structure because of Vault's equity document, and some people asked directly, "How did you find her?" I told them I didn't find her. She left a trail clear enough to follow.
She paused.
The fact that you could be found again, it means what you left behind, not just the code, is still in those systems. But I've also been thinking about something else. What's next for you? Not the lay low next, the kind that lets you keep doing what you do. Your algorithm's clean, but it just belonged to one company. If you want it to go, find the right entry points. Get the code into places that need it instead of locked inside one company's servers. They don't need fast transaction processing, they need something that runs reliably without constant upkeep. I want to build a version that doesn't depend on massive data centers where readability and speed come before performance.
Amina leaned back into the sofa.
That doesn't sound like starting over. It sounds like you've been getting ready to do this all along, and now you finally have the chance to say it.
Rachel didn't answer.
Rachel clenched her hands tightly. I haven't figured out the exact form yet. But I am thinking about starting over with a clean version, not for a company, but for whoever needs it.
Whoever needs it, like who?
like regions where infrastructure is being built but local systems don't get maintained. After Amika left, she sat in the living room. Walter came out from the kitchen, saw her still sitting there and paused.
That tea can be reheated.
Rachel stood up and put the cup in the sink. Amina's car had barely left the driveway when Rachel's phone buzzed. She looked down. A message from Amina, a group of Vault's early investors pushing to re-examine the licensing for the original architecture. Rachel read it and replied, "Which investor?" Amina replied, "Derek Chen. He thinks, now that the court has confirmed your original authorship, the algorithm itself shouldn't be tied to Vault's assets. He's open to bidding on the proposal, decents within Kopit's hodes. She's then to yell for which that me know. The call is scheduled." She put the phone back on the table. The window, the oak in the yard was heavy brown in afternoon light.
I've discussed the possibility of open source the core code with a few early investors. The court's ruling gives this a new foundation, but we need your involvement to make it happen. Not as the code author, but as the person who defined the framework originally.
What do you need from me?
We need to confirm one thing. Can this framework be broken down into independent components without relying on specific internal implementations? This isn't asking you to give away code for free, it's asking you to decide whether it can exist outside the company.
It can.
Then we'll draft a framework license agreement. I'll send you the draft.
A system's value isn't in who owns it, it's in whether it can keep running in the hands of anyone who needs it. Like circuits that have been taken apart and reconnected, their strength doesn't vanish when the connections change. It accumulates more paths with every new connection. She looked at that entry in the notebook, picked up her phone and messaged Amina. If that framework goes open source, it needs a new name, not Vault Core. Something else. Amina replied, "What do you want to call it?" Rachel typed 3 characters, Nuxline. She paused, then deleted it and typed another name, Baseline. She looked at those 2 characters and sent it. Amina replied a moment later, "Spoons," like to something phone on the desk and wrote that her near desk. It does with that name in her note. Base. Then she crossed out every reference to Vault's internal code names, leaving only the word Baseline. She turned off the lamp and sat in the dark for a while. On the brick wall outside, the streetlight looked colder than it did during the day. A new email from Drake arrived with a PDF attached, Baseline Framework License Agreement, Draft. Rachel opened it and found an entry on page 4 describing the framework's core principles. It is a reference model, whose core matching intact for derivative extensions. After reading it, she added a pencil note in the margin, "Extensions must not compromise the core structure's integrity." She saved the changes and sent the file back to Derek. That evening, Amina messaged, "Derek says the draft has been confirmed and can move forward. Next step is your official authorization." Rachel replied, "I need to read the final folder before I confirm." Put down her phone. She shut down the computer and left it on the desk. The phone screen glowed for a moment in the evening light, then locked itself. She walked to the window. The oak cast a long shadow across the yard, its edge lit by the distant street lamp, forming another line between light and dark.
Derek Chen, and a legal expert in the field. The topic was open source code frameworks and the boundaries of original authorship rights. Amina wore headphones, jotting down key points from the talk.
It means users of the framework must build divertive systems according to the functionally degrades.
She stopped writing and marked that passage. Derek's phrasing was almost identical to what Rachel had written in her email comment. Amina wrote 2 words beside it, Baseline. She checked her phone. No new messages. Rachel hadn't attended the talk. Amina knew she hadn't registered and wasn't planning to watch the recording, but she thought she should at least send Rachel Derek's statement about the continuity of original logic. She sent a message. Less than a minute after it showed as read, Rachel replied with a brief, "Good, thanks." Amina didn't push further.
Ben was reviewing a new repository structure, not Vault's internal code, but a standalone project framework file. The project name at the top of the page read, Baseline System Design Draft. After reading the first paragraph of the project description, Ben wrote his feedback in the comment box.
The authorization document is ready. It just needs your confirmation and signature. Baseline's license agreement will be filed immediately upon signing, becoming a public framework independent of any commercial entity.
Agreed. Effective date is today.
Good. Also, I need to confirm one thing with you. This authorization doesn't include any royalties or other compensation. Are you sure about this?
I'm sure.
Then the document is ready. I'll send it to you for signature, then we'll release it.
After the call, Rachel sat at the desk for a while, doing nothing. Then she picked up the pencil and wrote a line in her notebook, Baseline, signed, proceeding to next steps. She closed the notebook and placed it on the upper shelf with her mother's old books, right next to the one about City His history.
He submitted the feedback, then leaned back, looking at the line he typed, thinking that she'd probably considered this when she first designed the system, but never got around to putting it in the comments. He shut down his computer and noticed a sticky note on his desk, light blue, no writing on it. He picked it up and placed it beside the keyboard, neither throwing it away nor writing anything on it. It just sat there at the end of the day, like a silent confirmation.
Rachel sat at the desk, an open laptop and a notebook before her. On the screen was the latest version of Baseline, Updated 3 times now with new functional modules added, some interfaces retracted. A system can be open source without being abandoned. Open source means expanded access. The code is still alive, still maintained, still evolving. That was what she'd been open to a fresh page. Reset radios that lost connection. She'd started her third one. She flipped to it and saw a message from Derek, recorded in the earlier entries. One team built a distributed logging system based on this framework, as articulated in the documented in reimplementation. They said your code runs stable on standard formats. Her fingers paused at the edge of the notebook page. She closed it, picked up her phone, and messaged Amina. Baseline has been adopted. Did you see? Rachel looked at the reply, then put the phone down. She walked to the window. The repaired radio was playing jazz piece at the edge of the desk, low enough to barely fill the attic space. She stood there for a while, then turned and placed the notebook on the upper of her desk. They are still there, their edges aligned, waiting to be opened.